after Syriza came to power, was smashed over the head by the EU and ultimately capitulated and sold people out. I think the establishment across the world, but in Europe in particular, thought, great, now we've got the left. They were in power, they were defeated. That's the end of the rise of the left. But actually after that came Podemos in Spain, but also Jeremy Corbyn winning the leadership of the Labour Party in Britain, and Bernie Sanders, seriously challenging and rattling the Clinton and Democratic machine inside the Democratic Party. It's a huge indication of people moving to the left. I think Jeremy Corbyn has a massive battle on his hands inside the Labour Party. The majority of his MPs are mortal enemies of him and his ideas, because in reality they're New Labour MPs. So in effect, there's two parties within one now in the British Labour Party, and ultimately there'll be a showdown between those two different parties. And we would be encouraging people like Jeremy Corbyn to mobilise, to, it's clear that ordinary people in Britain agree with his ideas. The Labour Party, despite all the attacks by the media, the Labour Party is doing extremely well in by-elections and in everything else, indicating that people want his socialist ideas. He's better able to cut across the rise of the right UKIP with left-wing socialist ideas. And so he's to base himself on that movement to try and transform the Labour Party into a democratised and left-wing party. And similarly, Bernie Sanders, he faces even more of an uphill battle inside the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party was never a party of the left, was never a party of workers, unlike the British Labour Party in the past. And so I think the most likely thing is that the Democratic machine will stop Sanders. They'll mobilise superdelegates to prevent him being the presidential candidate. I think the importance of those movements is it's what they reflect, because people are looking to the left, and the leftward move is expressed in whatever way it can. In a peculiar way, through Corbyn being elected leader of the British Labour Party, or Sanders inside the Democrats, or Podemos outside of any of the traditional parties. But also, it puts the agenda of socialism and the idea of socialism, a different vision of how society could be organised, really on the agenda, because both Corbyn and Sanders are very unapologetic in saying that they're socialists and that that's a society worth fighting for. I think that social media has helped a lot the ability of people who are outside the political mainstream, outside of the establishment, to get their messages across. Again, if you look at Bernie Sanders, he was having rallies that were bigger than Hillary Clinton, bigger than any presidential candidate in history, actually, and he was largely being ignored by the mainstream media. He has now raised as much money in the last quarter as Clinton raised, with an average donation of $27. It's all small donations, whereas Clinton's getting huge money, and was generally written out of the media picture. Similarly with Jeremy Corbyn in Britain, he was treated as a bit of a joke, and then developed momentum as the campaign went on. And I think social media was very important in the initial stages in bypassing the mainstream media, in giving access, in allowing their message to be actually heard by people, rather than through the distorting prism of the mainstream media. Then to develop more momentum, which then in turn created pressure on the mainstream media to give some coverage to both Corbyn and Sanders, which in turn then created more interest in social media. So I think social media has been really important. I mean, there's two processes. I think that the mainstream media has been undermined because of it's been too blatant in terms of too obviously partisan. And then I think parallel with that and linked with that has been the rise of the influence of social media to counteract that. And those two things combined creates an environment that is a lot more friendly towards the rise of left-wing ideas and left-wing forces.